Hey, Spuddies, Potato McWhiskey here, and welcome to the Civilization 7 Dev Diary number 3, Managing Your Empire. So, hey Civ fans, Sarah here with another Dev Diary, this time tackling one of the most discussed and interesting parts of Civilization 7. Managing your empire. Today's author is Edward Zhang, who will be sharing a lot of in-depth detail on how you go about building an empire to stand the test of time. I actually don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I've always just heard that, like, ZH. If you see a ZH, it's pronounced more like a J, like a Zhang. So, don't know if I got that right. Be sure to tune in to our third Civ stream on Thursday, November 7th to get a closer look at the exploration age. I think it was actually November... Yeah. So... that means I will do this video next, because I'm a little bit behind, you know what I'm saying? As always, we love hearing from the community, so please continue to share your thoughts and questions across all of Civ's social media channels. Hello, Civ fans, I'm Edward Zhang, the economics feature lead for Civilization 7. It's a thrill to deep dive into one of the core aspects of Civilization gameplay, the way you build and manage your empire cities, and now towns. Today we'll explore how these changes redefine the core experience of Civilization, bringing one of the biggest shifts in the franchise's history. Our goal was to streamline gameplay, tone down complexity, and reduce overwhelming micromanagement that often dominated later stages of the previous Civ titles. Let's break down some of the key mechanics and thinking behind our design decisions. And so this is actually, I think the core of this is actually going to relate to some issues that I've complained about a lot, okay? I think some of you guys might have rose-tinted glasses when it comes to Civilization 6, which is kind of understandable. But basically, if you imagine, back in the days of like Civ 3, okay, we'll do like Civilization 3, okay? You know, if you had one worker, you had to give one worker, that means you had to give one worker one order per turn. Okay, so like the number of actions you had to take looked kind of linear. Like you had one worker, right? So like you're doing, here's one action, that's the second action, that's the third action, okay? But the problem crept in is when you had like 10 cities, imagine this is a log scale or whatever, right? It would look like, oh, one action, and then you have a second worker, now it's two actions, and now you've got a third worker, now it's three actions. So very quickly, this just goes, the number of actions you have to do per turn just goes crazy. And this is partially why builders in Civilization 6 have a limited number of charges, because if you build a builder in Civilization 6, you've got to do one action per builder, right? So the number of actions you have to do per turn for a worker is like, let's say this is 1, 2, 3, you do your 3 actions and then you're done. If you have 2 builders, or let's say you get a builder here, it looks like this, right? Let's say you're building a builder every single turn. The maximum number of actions you're doing per turn, right? The number of builders you're commanding, it peaks at 3. You know what I mean? Now, this was still a problem because if you have 20 cities, you're buying like 4 or 5 builders per turn. Now you're doing like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 actions per turn. And you're constantly refilling this. So the number of actions you're doing per turn is still like really high. But if you remember the graph we were talking about where the impact of actions towards the late of the game is actually quite small, a lot of these actions were busy work. Okay, so it looks like they're trying to get rid of the busy work, and in a really big way they already kind of have with the removal of builders. So design goals. The challenges of empire management in the 4X genre. As fans know, Civilization 7 is a 4X game, which each X standing for, I'm going to be real with you guys, it's phrased like, yeah, players know what this means. I'm going to, like, so many comments I get on my YouTube videos and people are like, what's a 4X game? And I'm like, the children don't know anything. The children are Philistine. They're uneducated. You know, they're absolutely uneducated troglodytes. No, we're being too rude. Basically, explore, expand, exploit, exterminate. And there's a reason he's explaining this at the start of the thing, is because he wants to make sure everyone understands that like this genre has a history and a meaning, and making sure that we're on a core, you know, same starting point. So players explore the game world to discover new resources and opportunities, as well as other civilizations and challenges. One of the big problems with explore is once you explore the map, there isn't much to explore, which is partially why it's nice that the map expands in Civilization 7 in the mid-game to give you new stuff to explore, right? If you're constantly being fed new areas to explore, it makes the game kind of interesting. Players expand their control by establishing new settlements and acquiring territory represented by hexes on the map. So you spread your empire across the map. Exploit. Player use their resources and abilities to further strengthen their civilization. You can also think of exploit as basically like the land. You explore the world, and then you expand into the world you have explored, and then you exploit the land that you have expanded into, and then when there's no more room, you exterminate other players. That is the basic 4x genre formula. Players can attack or be attacked by rival civilizations and independent powers. In Civilization 7, we wanted to reimagine how players expand and exploit their empire. Cities are the beating heart of any civilization, but managing them should never be a burden. Balancing growth across your empire while allowing for unique development opportunities has always been a core tenet of the Civilization gameplay. But over time, expansion can overwhelm players with an increasing number of decisions, leading to a late game fatigue. This is a really, really big problem, and we've talked about this many times on this channel, right? The number of actions you have to do in the late game, right, versus the impact of each of those individual actions is extremely, the ratio is off, right? You have to do like 100 actions, but it has the value of 10. Whereas in the early game, you do one action and it has the value of 10. You know what I mean? And so this is a real problem for the game. Now, some people say, like, you know, Victoria 2 players, they're like, oh, we like micromanaging armies. And I'm like, yeah, okay, great. I don't, cool. Thumbs up. Now, there's a lot to criticize about the Victoria 3 combat system, but if it worked properly, I would take it over the Victoria 2 one. For Civ 7, our design and templates enhanced the depth of city and empire management without bogging down players with unnecessary micromanagement. This approach meant rethinking mechanics like tile improvements, growth, and districts. We wanted every settlement to feel unique, every choice to be meaningful, and every decision to have a direct impact on your empire's growth, all while streamlining gameplay to keep the experience fresh and exciting from start to finish. The way I've started to think about, I don't know, does anyone else here play idle games? I know my editors do. At least some of them. But the way I've been thinking about it is that Civilization is kind of like an idle game or an incremental game where, like, over time, your empire does this, okay? And what you do when you hit this point is you want to prestige and you want to go back to here, right? And start over, because this is the fun part of the game, is this line here. And the Aegis system basically lets you do this like multiple times in a game. You go like, oh, age is over, and then new age, you start here, you go, oh, new age, start here. And so I've slowly started to become like even more excited about Civilization 7 as I've like started to think about it in this way. What it boils down to is every Civ player should feel like the ruler of an empire making important choices, not a servant tied down to micromanagement duties. This is actually one of the criticisms I levied against Ara History Unknown. It's like I have to manually go to every single farm in my civilization and personally hand out a plow to my farmers. You know, what am I, a king, or am I the king must give me a plow? He personally a blessed plow, you know what I mean? So, city management, towns, a fresh approach to expansion. One of the first changes you'll notice in Civilization 7 is the distinction between cities and towns. You begin with a founder unit to establish your capital city, while every subsequent settler unit creates a town. Later on, you'll have the option to spend gold to upgrade these towns into full-fledged cities. This distinction is an evolution from the singular focus on cities, as seen in previous Civ games. While cities remain powerful centers of production and development, towns serve as essential support hubs, providing economic benefits without requiring as much oversight. This is actually something I've thought about before when I've been thinking about like how do you solve the problem of having too many cities in Civ, or how do you stop like infinite city settlement? And I had this idea of basically like it's actually quite similar to the idea that they've given here. Let's say you have this city here, okay? This is a city, okay? I'll put a C here, okay? And the city has like tiers. So this would be like a level 1 city, okay? But then if I were to build let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away, and I built a little town here, okay? The city would take all the tiles around the town for itself and then become a level 2 city, giving it more multipliers to certain things. And so you would have the option of having like, okay, I could settle like a city, or I could have like 1 or 2 cities with a few towns, surrounded by towns that sort of feed the city. And you need, I guess the way that I was going to do it is you need the number of towns, the square root of the number of towns is your level. So like if you have 1 town, you're level 1. If you have 2 towns, you're level 2. 4 towns, you're level 3. If you have 9 towns, you're level 4 or whatever, right? It would look like that or something. I did this wrong. Hold on. 1 town, you're level 1. 4 towns, you're level 2. 9 towns, you're level 3. And not only does each town give a flat plus multiplier, gives a flat bonus, it also gives a multiplier bonus. So getting to the 9 town level, where your city is properly surrounded, would actually be big. And then the next one would be 16 or whatever. And that would be like generally considered the maximum number of towns. And a level 4 town is 4 times multiplier something. I don't know. There's all these kind of like different approaches, but I kind of like the idea where they've gone with like you have different towns. I like what they've done here, and I think it's an interesting idea. Importantly, towns do not have a production menu. So this is something that we want to talk about a little bit actually. Usually in a civilization game, when you settle a city, you have to start giving that city orders, right? In terms of production. And you have to start doing calculations in your head. It's like, okay, how long is it going to take to build a granary? Should I build a mine, a worker, a builder? Blah, blah, blah. Right. You've got to do all these calculations, but now a town just plops down. It doesn't have a production menu. It just harvests the land. It exploits the land. And they automatically convert their production into gold, and they offer various support roles for your civilization through specialization. As towns reach a set threshold of population, they gain access to a focus menu, which allows players to specialize them in one of several roles. Farming towns produce food. Fort towns heal your units and give them defense. Trade outposts extend the range of trade routes and boost your happiness, and there are many other types. Once you select a specialization, it's a permanent choice for the age, making it a key strategic decision that rewards forward planning. Here's an overview of the various town specialties in Civilization 7. Some are age specific. So if you make a farming town, right, let's say you have like really good land. Let's draw ourselves a little map again. We've been enjoying this sort of map creation, right? Let's say we've got a little empire here, and we'll just do vaguely shaped coastline. I know it looks like an amoeba or something, but it'll make sense in a moment. Like, let's say you've got a capital city all the way over here, right? You've got a capital city here, and it's actually in like a sort of plains area where there's not a lot of food, right? But it is your capital city for this age, so you want to grow it. You could come down here to this lush, beautiful river area, settle another city, make it a farming town, or I'll put an F on it so you can see this is a farming town. Grab all the food around here and send that food to your capital, which basically allows you to level up the capital. And I think that's a really, really cool mechanic. It's a very, very interesting thing, especially when you've got stuff like mining towns. Now remember, the production in these towns gets converted into gold. So a mining town is actually a gold town. A trading outpost gives you bonus happiness. Fort towns give you health and health to walls. Religious sites gives bonus happiness to all temples in your empire. A hub town gives you bonus influence for every connected settlement. The urban center gives you bonus science and culture on districts with 2 buildings in this town. So this is if you want to use your sort of settlements to get a little bit of a boost to science and culture. You know, I could see, you make an urban center early into the game, especially if you're thinking about building this up as an actual city later. This could be a great way to get that little bit of science and culture early into a thing. And then a factory town gives you bonus gold towards purchasing a factory to this town, plus an additional resource slot. So we've got like an image here. So we've got farming and fishing, which I believe sends food around your empire. You've got mining, which just produces a lot of money. So I think farming and fishing and mining are going to be your 2 sort of main ones. They're going to be your 2 big sort of main town focuses is like, do I want this town to feed the rest of my empire, or do I want this town to make a lot of gold so that I can build up my cities? That's going to be like these are going to be the 2 main decisions as far as I'm concerned. And then obviously focus on growth, which will allow the town to grow itself. I believe when you are a farming and fishing town, the town no longer grows because it's sending all of its food surplus to other cities in your empire. But you can't switch. Once you go to a mining town, you can always switch back to a focus on growth town, but you can't then change the specialty, but you can always switch between the 2 focus on growth and whatever specialization you chose so that you can like grow up a city a little bit. The design behind towns. Our goal was to make expansion more strategic and less overwhelming. In past Civ games, each new city added something more to manage. By the late game, the sheer number of cities and decisions could lead to a loss of focus and a lot of busy work. This is very, very true. So if not every town had, like, let's say, imagine Civilization 5, right? You're conquering a whole bunch of people's cities, and then you realize, oh God, like half of the infrastructure was destroyed during the war. Now I have to rebuild everything. If you could just conquer that city and say, hey, you now fund my empire through making gold, like the number of decisions you have to make is just significantly reduced. So I think this is overall, like, just straight up really nice. These are like the consequences that this is going to have on the game is far reaching and actually really good, like really, really good. So towns are our answer to streamlining expansion. They grow, support, and adapt to your needs without requiring constant input. So you could just come check in your towns every now and again and be like, oh yeah, like you just do this, you're fine, you're good, man. And it's like a little idle machine that's slowly producing for you. Past Civilization games have always had a balance between tall and wide playstyles. Tall players prefer quality over quantity, with fewer build queues so that less time is spent managing empire production. Wide players prefer quantity, with an empire that covers every tile as far as they can see. This balance has shifted with the past couple of iterations. Civilization 5 favored more of a tall strategy, and Civilization 6 leaned more towards wide. For players focused on min-maxing, these approaches tend to be the most effective ways to play. With the additions of towns, Civilization 7 aims to support both playstyles equally, leaving the choice a matter of preference rather than strategy. Yeah, I think it's actually a pretty damn elegant solution, because I can very easily imagine like a scenario where a player has like, you might have like, let's say you have 10 cities or 10 settlements. One player might have literally 10 cities, but another player might have like 2 cities and 8 towns, right? And this is tall versus wide. You know what I mean? the same landmass, like previously, like the amount of landmass you would have sort of dictated how you played, but now I can play tall and wide on the same land, which is very interesting. So this is what I really like this change. I'm really excited for this change, and I really hope it works the way that they're hoping it does. A tall player can now have an empire that collects yields and resources from a vast swath of land, but only worry about a minimal number of build queues. With towns feeding a few cities, they will grow into large production powerhouses supplemented by the gold income from those towns. Amazing. A wide player can play just as they would in Civilization 6, placing cities in every nook and cranny. With town production converted into gold, even this playstyle is streamlined by encouraging the batch purchase of buildings necessary to get that new city up to par with the rest of the empire. And for those deity players who are optimized their play down to the last gold per turn, the choice between towns and cities represents an ever-changing strategic calculus that provides a new impactful decision every time you send forth a settler. Fans of all approaches will find the flexibility they need to build their ideal empire in Civilization 7. I'm really excited by these changes. I think it could be huge for how the game is actually played. A new growth system, no builders, no problem. So the first time I actually encountered this growth system, I believe it was playing Age of Wonders 4. When your city grows in that game, you just build an improvement on a tile. Now, it has a little bit more going on there. The Civilization 7 is actually an even more streamlined version of that. But I think the growth system actually as an idea works really well. I do kind of miss builders, but I understand why they got rid of them, right? Because early game builders are really fun to use, but by the late game, it's like, ugh. One of the major shifts in Civilization 7 is the removal of builder units. Rather than sending builders out to improve tiles, population growth naturally drives improvements. As settlements generate food, they accumulate said food into a bucket. Once the settlement's growth bucket is filled, you gain a population point that begin allocated to a tile improvement or assigned to a specialist on urban tiles. The bucket then grows in size for the next growth event. Basically, what he's saying here is the way that growth works in Civilization 7 is you earn food. That food is stored in a sort of buffer or a bucket, or it's accumulated. And then once you reach a certain amount of food, a new population is born. And then the amount of food you need to get another population increases. And the decision to tie tile development to population growth simplifies the gameplay and reduces the repetitive action seen in past games. This is very true. Oftentimes there was like a bit of I can only describe it as like an arms race between your workers, your population, and your tile improvements. So like you might have a city, I'll build a very silly graph here. Okay, so this is like one city. You might have a city and its population looks like this. Okay, so you got one pop. I wanted that to be green, excuse me. You've got one population, okay, and then you get another population, 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 right? And so on and so forth. You get a bunch of population. But you might not get a builder until like here, okay? And now there's like this difference, right? This is your builder, okay? And he starts building tile improvements, and your first tile improvement comes online. And the difference between these two lines is like your improvement deficit. But eventually you build all those improvements, okay? And now you've got too many improvements. So now you've overproduced the thing. And in Civilization 7, these lines are now just the same. They follow each other. And I think that's a really elegant and nice solution that allows us to avoid this area right here. So I'm a big fan, especially as now both food as a yield and your growth choice carries more weight and integrate more seamlessly with your overall strategy. I don't love it. I understand the logic behind it, but I don't love it, but I will try it. I will experiment with it. I will see how it works. If it works, it will be amazing. So empire management, the settlement cap, strategic growth over unchecked sprawl. In Civ 7, the settlement cap serves as a soft limit on the number of cities and towns you can maintain without penalty. If you exceed this cap, local happiness in each settlement decreases, which in turn reduces your global happiness yield. Balancing your expansion within the settlement cap is critical to efficiently growing your empire. So I understand the idea behind a settlement cap. I don't love settlement caps. I don't love settlement caps. And the reason I don't love settlement caps is because they feel like a magical arbitrary number. And the less magical arbitrary numbers that I see when I play, the happier I am. And that is why I don't like the settlement cap. I understand the problem it's trying to solve. I appreciate that it solves the problem it is trying to solve, but that does not make me like it. Just as units of buildings have maintenance costs to limit unchecked growth, the settlement cap introduces a balance between expansion and exploitation. It encourages thoughtful, strategic growth rather than rapid, unchecked sprawl. There are multiple ways to increase the settlement cap, but they require time and resource investment. While you can choose to exceed the cap, Managing your happiness yield effectively will be essential to mitigate the penalties of overextension and keeping your empire thriving. Happiness, a double-edged sword. In Civilization 7, happiness functions both as a local and global yield that directly impacts the stability of your empire. Locally, happiness is necessary to support specialists and maintain buildings within your cities and towns. Globally, it accumulates across your settlements to trigger celebrations, special events that provide powerful buffs and slots for traditions and social policies. Effectively managing your happiness is key to the growth and stability of your civilization. If local happiness falls below zero, you will face penalties that reduce the output of all of the yields, slowing down your progress. Keeping an eye on the resources and conditions that affect happiness is key to maintaining a stable and prosperous settlement. So this is sort of this is just the brake wheels. This is the thing that sort of keeps you from being able to just infinitely settle cities and expand throughout the map. And I appreciate it. I'm interested in it. I don't love it being called happiness. I understand. I liked amenities. I liked happiness. I liked health. I'm happy to experiment. I'm happy to try this out. I'm not against it. I'm just curious about it. So yeah, I'm interested to try all this stuff out. Really, I just want to get my hands on the game and play it. Management through the ages. What stays versus what decays. As your civilization advances through the ages, not all of your constructs will stay the same. Warehouse buildings, unique buildings and improvements and wonders can retain their effects and continue to provide all those bonuses regardless of the age. So warehouse buildings, unique improvements in buildings, and wonders are permanent. So whatever, like if you build a wonder in the antiquity era, the ancient era, that stays all the way through to the future era, whatever, right? So like if you build the pyramids in antiquity, it stays. If you build I forget what the mortuary temple or whatever the Egyptian one is, or the triumph for Rome, that stays forever. They are tagged in the game as ageless. These buildings ensure that your investments carry forward through time, providing a reliable backbone to your empire's infrastructure. However, other buildings and improvements may eventually become outdated. They will lose their effects and adjacency bonuses, keeping only their base yields, prompting opportunities to overbuild and evolve your empire to better suit the new age's requirements and resources. Overbuilding allows you to adapt your cities to new challenges and opportunities as you progress through the ages. After transitioning from one age to the next, older structures can be replaced by new, more powerful buildings, making sure that your empire's infrastructure always matches its needs. And again, I want you to think about this as like a prestige mechanic. You get to the end of the era, and you reset to zero, but you have a bunch of like prestige perks. That's the way that I want you to think about this. And like, I think that's a really cool mechanic because I love prestiging in video games. This is like really exciting. I am slowly but surely, I am coming around to the idea that the ages mechanic is like going to be the thing that makes Civilization 7 like a worldwide success. Now I could be wrong, right? Maybe it doesn't, and maybe maybe the game torpedo. Who knows what happens, right? Key gameplay mechanics. Districts overhauled. In Civilization 7, a district planning could be a complex and often challenging mechanic. I loved district planning. Yes, it was complex. Yes, it was challenging, but once you mastered it, once you understood it, it felt amazing to interact with. After Civilization 7, we've taken major steps to streamline this experience. This worries me. Rather than assigning a specific specialty to urban districts such as science or culture district, we've made every district more flexible. You no longer need to pre-build any district as they are automatically established when you place a building down. Each urban tile has 2 building slots that can hold any type of building, allowing you to customize each district to suit your strategy. Additionally, there's no theming bonus for grouping similar buildings together. We made this decision to avoid creating the illusion of choice and ensure players make meaningful, interesting decisions rather than being guided by artificially strong incentives. I respect this. Like, yes, it felt rewarding, like to put down a campus and build a university and a library all in the same spot, but I understand why they're doing this, because the problem is, like, the decision tree for, if you, how do I explain this? Oh God, that's gross. Like, if you imagine there's a decision tree, okay, and like you start here, and over here you've got like build a library, build a university, build a market, okay? If you build the library and you get a benefit for building the university on the same tile, the thickness of the line to university is way thicker than, like, if you imagine this decision tree is way, like, this is just so much better than this decision. So like this becomes automatic now. and the actual player choice has been reduced. So by getting rid of that sort of artificial incentive, you actually give the player a more equal decision landscape, because now these decisions are a little bit more equal, basically, is the way that I understand it. Finally, new districts must be placed adjacent to the city centre and expand outwards, creating a more cohesive and unified look for your cities. This approach not only makes city planning more intuitive, but it also gives your city a more organic, natural layout as they grow. So you can see there's like the urban core on the northern side of the river, and then you've got like the rural core down on the southern side, with a lot more farming based and resource extraction, right? And I think that does actually give the Empire a nice natural vibe and feel. Adjacency bonuses make their return in Civilization 7, now with a more streamlined design. Rather than being tied to specific districts, these bonuses are granted to certain buildings based on the natural features and player-made structures surrounding them. While the bonuses may start small, placing specialists on urban tiles can significantly enhance their effects, making adjacency a key part of your city's development strategy. No need to worry about crunching numbers. We've integrated all of the calculations directly into the UI. What you see is exactly what you get. You see here, look at all these big, like you've got 20 science here, 17 gold, 16 culture, you've got 11 happiness. You can see there's like all of the resource calculations are done for you. You just look and you can see big number. The numbers are a little big. I will say that. They're a lot bigger than they used to be. Unique quarters. Unique quarters are formed when two Civ-specific unique buildings share the same tile. They offer substantial benefits and distinct visual flair. Specialists. I skipped specialists. Specialists return in Civilization 7, but with greater significance. Allocating population to urban tiles creates specialists, which provide science and culture yields while consuming food and happiness. They also amplify adjacency bonuses of their tile, making them vital for maximizing your city's potential. Deciding how to balance the benefits they bring with the resources they consume is a critical part of efficient city management. I am kind of excited for how specialists work in Civilization 7, because specialists in Civilization 6 were kind of ass. I know the developers really wanted to try to make specialists interesting in Civilization 6. I just don't think they ever got it was never very high on the priority list. They never got enough time, right, to make them interesting. And that was really just all it really came down to, as far as I can tell, is the development budget, like the energy and time and stuff went into like developing all the really cool, interesting interactions and civilizations. And so specialists just kind of fell a little bit by the wayside. But I think the way that they're being done in Civilization 7 is kind of exciting, right? They eat food and happiness, right? Whereas rural folk only eat food, I believe. Although I could be wrong about that. But they provide extra culture and science and a big boost to the building that they've been placed on, which is kind of exciting and very interesting. It's very intriguing. Unique quarters are formed when two Civ-specific unique buildings share the same tile. They offer substantial benefits and distinct visual flair that reflects your civilization's culture and progress. However, spreading your unique buildings across different tiles may grant better yields in some niche scenarios, depending on your overall strategy and terrain layout. It also could be that you just don't want a unique quarter that lasts forever. That is something you might want to consider, although I hope that the unique quarters are interesting enough to always be a consideration. Warehouse buildings play a pivotal role in maximizing yields from improvements. These buildings provide bonuses based on the number of similar improvements in a settlement. For example, a granary boosts food production from farms, plantations, and pastures. They become focal points in settlements with dense agricultural or industrial development, rewarding careful planning and optimal placement. So you can see here, granaries give you food from farms, plantations, and pastures. So basically it rewards you. You build a granary if you plan to place a lot of farms. You build a saw pit if you plan to place a lot of woodcutters and camps. You build a fishing quay if you plan to build a lot of fishing boats. You build a brickyard if you're building clay pits, quarries, and mines. This is quite nice, and these last forever, I believe. These are just permanent. They're ageless, I believe, so they'll just be around forever. It's kind of exciting that these are your basic urban buildings. They let you spread out your urban tiles a little bit. Wonders are among the most powerful things you can construct in Civilization 7. Each wonder occupies a full tile and has a powerful effect, and provides adjacency bonus to every surrounding building. That's something I like, is that all buildings get bonuses from being near wonders. That's actually a really cool idea that could be an interesting mod for Civilization 6. One of the more frustrating experiences in previous Civ games was losing out on a wonder before completing it, often leading to rage quits, very true, or loading up older saves, also true. If you have advisor warnings on, Civ 7 will now notify you if a wonder you're building is already being constructed by another player you've met, helping you plan accordingly and avoid those unpleasant surprises. That is a nice change. You'll now know if another player is building a wonder, which maybe that allows you to oh God, I've got to rush this, Last words, we're really excited for you to dive into these new systems in Civilization 7. With streamlined settlement and empire management, more intuitive growth mechanics, and the ability to specialize your towns in meaningful ways, we believe that every part of managing your empire will feel more impactful, strategic, and fun. We can't wait to see how you you adapt and make these mechanics your own, forging unique empires that you believe in. If you have any questions, thoughts, share them in our forums, social media channels, and everywhere else you're talking Civ. Thanks for reading and happy building. I gotta say, I'm really excited for the changes towards managing your empire. Like, while yes, at first I was like, man, removing builders sucks. I really liked the builder management. Like, that's a fun minigame. The removing them also completely, like, gets rid of one of the biggest and most egregious sources of like late game micromanagement BS that a player has to deal with when they're playing Civilization. So I think that's actually a really exciting and positive change for the game. I do think that the builder growth, unification system, I think that's going to be overall positive for the game. I think people are going to feel different kinds of ways about it, and I understand that. But I do think this is like kind of an objectively good step in the right direction here. I also think the towns, like I think the changes to towns and cities is basically a masterstroke of game design. Like the idea that now not every city has to have a construction queue, which is one of the biggest and most annoying things about managing an empire in games, is like, oh, this thing needs a construction queue. I need to get it building things, blah, blah, blah. And now I can just be like, all right, you make farm for me, make my other cities bigger, make my other city, but you can still make decisions about these towns without having to make a decision every 6 or 7 turns. So I feel like the actual pace of the gameplay is going to be a lot nicer in the flow when it comes to Civilization 7. Then the settlement cap, I'm a little skeptical of. I accept it. I'm skeptical of it because I just don't like magic numbers, but I'm willing to accept magic numbers for better gameplay. So the settlement cap and happiness things, I'm kind of excited to try out. I want to see how like celebrations work, all that sort of stuff. I like that there's a built-in prestige mechanic in the game, right? As you reach the end of an age, you get a bunch of bonuses, and your empire basically resets, not quite to 0, but it resets, right? You go back down to a more flattened level. Everyone is flattened out to be on a fairly even playing field, and then boom, you start going all over again. I like the district overhauls. While the district placement systems in Civilization 6 were incredibly satisfying, I think this is overall better design. But I do... I just like the way they work in 6, right? And that's just something I'm going to have to get over. I like the way adjacency works in Civilization 6, but, maybe Civilization is better. I really like the new changes to specialists. I think that's huge and is a big step in the right direction. I love unique quarters as a gameplay mechanic, right? That you can build these like permanent little marks on the map. Unique districts are just so cool. And so by the end of the game, I'm going to have like 3 different unique districts, which is really, 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 really exciting. Warehouse buildings and wonders. I mean, wonders kind of work like they do in Civilization 6 with some tweaks, but I like the tweaks that they've made to wonders. I got to say, overall, I think the empire management in Civilization 7 is just going to be like objectively the most good feeling, in the sense that it does not require you to do a whole bunch of pointless minigames and BS in the super late game. And I understand that a lot of people aren't going to like that, because one of the most fun parts of Civilization 5 for a lot of people is mastering the builder minigame, right? Or Civilization 6, similarly, planning out and plotting your chops and moving builders around. That is a really fun minigame, but it's also tedious and annoying sometimes if you don't really want to interact with it. So I gotta say, 10 out of 10. Managing your empire is going to be amazing in Civ 7 if they can pull all this off. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I love you all very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye!